So someone in the comments suggested that I play Drake of the 99 Dragons, and now I have. Now obviously I'd heard of this game since it comes up every single time I'm looking for something to review, however I'd never actually played it, seen any gameplay or even seen any other reviews. So I really had no idea what I was in for. I didn't quite get the scope of just how awful Drake of the 99 Dragons actually is. I mean, Rogue Warrior, another game stated to be one of the worst of all time, wasn't nearly as awful as I thought it would be. In fact, I had fun playing it, so I took these reviews with a pinch of salt. Yeah, turns out I didn't need to do that. Drake of the 99 Dragons is every bit as bad as the reviews suggest, maybe more so. I am genuinely shocked. How does a game turn out like this? It's actually quite impressive how much has gone wrong. So, without further ado, here's Drake of the 99 Dragons, and sit tight, this video is going to be longer than normal. So the plot is basically every action game ever made. You play as Drake, a member of the 99 Dragons clan, who have been tasked with protecting an ancient MacGuffin called the Soul Portal Artifact. Then one day, a guy literally called Ghost Assassin comes along, steals it, kills your master, and then it's your job to get revenge and save the day from generic evil businessman who wants to rule the world. Honestly, plots don't get more straightforward than this. However, in this case, straightforward also means incredibly confusing. Because somehow they've managed to make a story that's both very easy to understand, yet completely impossible to actually explain. Genuinely, I cannot tell you what happens beyond what I said at the start. The game just goes off on random, unexplainable tangents that are never given a single bit of context. Like, who are the 99 Dragons? What exactly does the ancient MacGuffin do? And why do they need the soul of an albino orca to make their evil plan work?
Servant's Eye fishermen have captured the albino orca and brought it to the fish factory at Dock 12.
This is where Serpent Eye will deliver the artifact to complete his bargain with Tang.
And a ritual will be performed to charge the artifact with the energy of the whale's soul.
And it's not like they've tried anything new. It's good guy, bad guy, revenge. It's like fucking up a bowl of cereal, but somehow they've managed it. I mean, one moment you're in a casino, then you're in a fireworks factory, then you're fighting bikers, then you're getting rammed by cars, and finally you're fighting demons in hell. It also doesn't help that it jumps back and forth between places you've already been, since only 8 of the 25 levels aren't reused in one way or another. The whole thing is very, very confusing, and I don't know who anyone is, what these places are, or why I'm there. Things just happen, and they make absolutely no sense. Also, not only is it impossible to understand the story, it's also impossible to understand what this game actually is. See, for the most part, it's clearly trying to be edgy and serious, with absolutely no humour and a run-of-the-mill action-packed plot. But then, you have Drake, who quite frankly, is a fucking idiot. The guy is completely inept. He constantly fucks up, and he can't do a single thing right. And what's worse is he dies all the time. At points, he genuinely had me thinking this was a parody game, because they portray him as the most over-the-top 90s anti-hero ever.
Those who know my name whisper it in fear. Most people I meet, I only meet once. I am Drake, the assassin. To me, life is all about death.
He's just a constant stream of hysterical, self-praising monologues about how he's the best assassin ever, which is funny because it couldn't be further from the truth. I should mention that one of the game's plots is that Drake is made immortal by a tattoo they call the Undying Dragon. And this means that every time he dies, these dragon gods make him a new body and send his soul back to the living world. Now they have to bring him back so many times, they outright state it's draining their power.
Again, we will provide you with an avatar. This is starting to drain even our power.
And it's not like he's just killed in combat. When Drake first finds out he's immortal, he convinces himself that immortal also means invulnerable, jumps out of what I assume is a 99-story building, and fucking dies.
The strength of the stolen souls is changing me. Have I become invincible? Nothing can stop me now.
The game literally starts with the main character getting so hyped up he kills himself. Does that sound like an elite assassin to you? I mean, in its Tyne comic book, it actually states that the story of Drake is a dark and epic saga set in a neo-Gothic Asian cityscape, and his character is completely serious and very capable, so why they went ahead and made him a complete moron, I have no clue. I'd also like to point out that the comic book overlaps with the game, ending slightly before the game starts. And in the comic, he goes from human to undead, which is indicated by the change in his skin colour and his white eyes. But in the game, he starts in his undead form. So, what? They couldn't follow the story of their own comic book. Right. So this gameplay, simply put, is on a level so awful I cannot comprehend it. All of it ranges from either terrible to borderline unplayable, with almost everything being closer to the latter half of the spectrum. Okay, so let's start with the gunplay, which in my opinion is the least bad part. See, I had to play the much more unstable Xbox version, which unlike the PC has auto-aim. Granted, it doesn't always work. Also, Drake's arms flail around in a manner that would break them every 10 seconds, but I never really struggled with it that much, which is something that cannot be said for the rest of the game. The other controls, for example, are horrid, and no joke, the camera made me feel ill. It moved so fast and violently that while I was playing I actually had to take a break because it was starting to make me feel motion sick. Every other game I play causes me mental pain, but this was the first one to cause me actual physical discomfort. Anyway, as for the actual gameplay, it's borderline impossible to make Drake go where you actually want him to, because 1, he acts like he's on the fucking moon every time he jumps, and 2, the nausea-inducing camera is completely fucked and it won't be looking in the right direction anyway. And I should mention this only gets worse the more you play. Considering how hard it can be to traverse the most basic parts of the game, you can imagine what it's like when you have to do some actual platforming. I cannot express how frustrating this gets. The amount of times I died from falling or just didn't make a jump because of shit controls is maddening. Even the most basic jumps are perilous endeavours, especially when the game's own instructions are likely to get you killed. The final levels in Hell are really hard, and this elevator stage killed me so many times I rage quit for an entire day before I came back. I should also add it's not just the bad controls that make it really difficult, it's also the fact that fall damage is beyond broken. A lot of the time you'll take lethal amounts of fall damage from mandatory jumps. For example, this section where you have to fly on fans, you have to jump here. You can't avoid being rocketed 100 feet in the air, yet half the time when you land, you'll die. And sometimes, you'll take fall damage for absolutely no reason. Although falling isn't the only bullshit hazard you'll have to deal with. You also get artificial difficulty cranked to the highest possible level. See, you have a multitude of enemies on each stage, and by a multitude I mean absolutely fucking loads of them. A lot of rooms are just giant clusterfucks filled with as many enemies as possible, enemies who don't have to reload. And even when they're not, they're placed directly behind doors, giving you absolutely no time to react. So you arrive, watch those doors slide open and die instantly. Also, in the later levels, the enemies start putting out ridiculous amounts of damage. The last few stages are particularly bad because not only do the enemies kill you in a few hits, they also spawn next to you. However, I'd say the worst by far are these fucking shotgun enemies, because just one can kill you in 3 shots and there's normally 3 or 4 at once. The morgue mission, for instance, is seared into my memory, because not only is it unnecessarily long, but you have to clear rooms filled with these enemies. I swear, the amount of times I reached the end only to be killed by that one stray bullet. That mission alone took me over an hour. Although there is a way to make the game a bit easier, and that's Drake's ability to stop time. See, when you kill someone, you collect their soul for the undying dragon, in turn giving you health and filling up your gauge that lets you slow time or stop it completely. Now, the whole time-stopping ability is already pretty broken. Considering the amount of enemies you face, the gauge is almost always full. Unless you really spam it, it will never deplete. Then again, while it does help with gunfights, it won't stop any of the bullshit falling deaths, and you'll still get obliterated by all the late game enemies, you just get to witness your failure for longer. Although the biggest issue with this ability is that the souls you need to activate it have an animation so needlessly bright that every time you pick the little bastards up, it's like a fucking solar flare inches from your eyeballs. I had to move back from my monitor as far as I could go, and even then it was still too bright. And the thing is, you have to collect them every single second, because later on the enemies do so much damage, you never have any health. Why they didn't make the animation, I don't know, not take up the whole screen, or not make it so bright that every time you collect one you sear your retinas, I'm not sure. I should also add that picking one up while in slow motion prolongs the amount of time the animation's on screen, which is about as much fun for your eyes as a sand belter. So in general, the bosses are just regular enemies with new skins and slightly different attacks. And since their areas are far less cluttered than regular ones, they're actually much easier. Just spam the slow-mo button and they'll be dead before you know it. But of course, it wouldn't be Drake of the 99 Dragons if there weren't a few exceptions to this. For example, the first boss fight is against some bloke wielding dual machine guns, and he can deplete all of your health in just a few bursts. Well, I say bursts, but it's actually more like a constant stream, because there isn't a single second of this fight where he isn't firing. Also, you can't actually deal with him until you've dealt with 3 extremely aggressive high damaging demon dogs that spawn at the start of the fight, and if you don't kill them instantly, they will hunt you down until the end of time. Although this all pales in comparison to the final boss, which is the most unfair broken mess I've ever seen, and if you want to beat him you have to exploit his AI, otherwise you are fucked. Firstly, he does insane amounts of damage, enough to kill you in about 3 hits, which is convenient because he has exactly 3 heads. 3 heads that have no attack pattern and will often attack in rapid succession. And when he does hit you, it makes your camera go haywire, look in the opposite direction, and the amount of time it takes to correct it is the exact amount of time it takes for him to charge up another attack. The only way I beat him was to run into the corner, destroy these bones, and then position myself in a way where he couldn't hit me. And even then, it was extremely sketchy. So a lot of this game's difficulty comes from elements completely out of the player's control, and one of those things is a near endless stream of game-breaking bugs and glitches. Now, I've played a few buggy games before this, but the sheer amount here is staggering. It's basically all of the others combined times 10. Clipping into walls, clipping through platforms, getting stuck in platforms, being damaged for no reason, things moving after they die, textures not loading, everything is on full display here. Like, there was a time when this guy got stuck running into a wall for 5 minutes, and then he killed himself. Although the worst glitch by far is one where Drake will dab, then stay like that unless you restart the game. This happened so many times, I was constantly afraid it was going to strike at the end of a difficult mission. There was even a time it happened in mid-air, which admittedly was pretty funny. I should also mention I had a particularly stressful time with the last 5 levels, because I was so close to the end I'd neglected to save, and the game decided then that it wasn't going to let me do it at all. Like, my controller was perfectly functional in-game, but in the menus everything stopped working bar the A button, so I could only continue. So So is Drake of the 99 Dragons the worst game I've ever played? Yes it is. Normally I'd say that it had the potential to be good, but I mean, look at it. How the fuck did it end up like this? Almost everything has gone wrong. The only thing I'd say is kinda cool is the tie-in comic book with its art style, but even then, kinda cool doesn't make up for the mammoth tidal wave of sheer awfulness that is the rest of the game. It's borderline unplayable. At least I could play Little Britain. I mean, I didn't want to play Little Britain, but I could. In this, you really are at the mercy of the dragon gods because it's up to them if the game works or not. Also, it's the only game that made me feel physically ill to the point I had to stop playing, so I feel like it has to be ranked as the worst game on this list. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.